Pay attention to this timeline. March 28, 2024. Villa Zara, Desert Palm Estates, Dubai. 11:47 p.m. Security logs show Sheikh Jalil Al-Qasimi entering the master bedroom of his 40-room mansion. Inside, his bride waits, Celestine Reyes, 26 years old, Filipino, married to him for exactly 11 hours. She's wearing the white silk nightgown he gave her as a gift. The bedroom has been prepared with fresh white sheets. Traditional requirement. The sheets are supposed to prove her virginity by morning. They will prove something else entirely. At 12:03 a.m., 16 minutes after he enters, Sheikh Jalil exits the bedroom and calls his lawyer. His voice is calm, steady. Rashid, I've killed her. The bride. She was pregnant with another man's child. She deceived me about everything. I need you to come to Villa Zara immediately. This is not a story about a marriage. This is about a $4 million fraud that ended with 37 stab wounds and 2 bodies, a 26-year-old woman and the 18-week-old baby she was carrying. In those 16 minutes, everything Celestine Reyes had lied about for 4 months was discovered, and the price of that deception was paid in blood soaking into white sheets that were never meant to tell the story. To understand how a wedding night became a murder scene, you need to understand what happened exactly 4 months earlier. September 12, 2023. Manila, Philippines. Rosa Reyes receives another visit from the loan sharks. Her family owes $200,000. Money her late husband borrowed before he died from diabetes complications 2 years ago. The men who come to collect are not patient. They've already broken her son Luis's arm as a warning. 19 years old, fractured radius and ulna, $5,000 in medical bills the family can't pay. The loan sharks make their position clear. 60 days to pay. After that, people start dying. Rosa first, then her daughter Maricel, then Luis last after they make him watch. This is not a threat. This is a schedule. Celestine Reyes, Rosa's oldest daughter, sits in the cramped apartment they share in a poor Manila neighborhood and does the math. She works as a nursing assistant, makes $400 a month. Her mother cleans houses when her health allows. Another $300. Maricel had to drop out of university because they couldn't pay tuition. Luis can't work construction anymore with his broken arm. $200,000 might as well be $2 million. Impossible. Until September 19th when Celestine sees the advertisement. Premium Brides International. Seeking young Filipino women for marriage contracts with wealthy Middle Eastern clients. Compensation ranging from $1 to $5 million depending on client requirements. She calls the number. The receptionist schedules her for the next day. September 20th, 2023. Celestine arrives at the Premium Brides office. Madam Soraya, the owner, is a Filipino woman in her 50s who wears too much makeup and speaks with the practiced efficiency of someone who's brokered hundreds of these arrangements. She slides a contract across the desk. Sheikh Jalil Al-Qasimi, 51 years old, senior executive at Zenith Petroleum Corporation. Net worth $800 million, twice widowed, 5 children from previous marriages. The contract terms are explicit. For $1 million total, $2 million paid upon marriage, $2 million upon delivery of a male heir within 2 years. Requirements non-negotiable. Virgin bride. Medical certificate required. Islamic faith or willingness to convert. Complete obedience to husband's authority. He's very particular about virginity, Madame Soraya says, watching Celestine's face. It's not just preference, it's sacred requirement for him. He's had bad experiences with previous marriage brokers, women who lied, so now he requires medical certification. Dr. Valdez at Marival's Medical Center handles the examinations. The appointment is already scheduled for you tomorrow morning at 9. He'll perform the virginity test and issue the certificate. Sheikh Jalil requires official documentation before he'll even meet you. Celestine holds the contract for $1 million. She thinks about her mother's frightened face when the loan sharks visit. She thinks about Luis's broken arm. She thinks about Maricel crying because she had to quit school. She thinks about 60 days until people start dying. I'll do it, she says. Madame Soraya smiles. Excellent. But first, the medical examination. Without that certificate, there's no contract. She hands Celestine a card. Dr. Ernesto Valdez, MD, Obstetrics and Gynecology. The appointment is 9 a.m. tomorrow. Celestine takes the card with shaking hands. That night, Celestine takes a pregnancy test in the bathroom of her family's apartment. She already knows what it will say. She's 3 weeks late, nausea every morning, tender breasts, exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. The test confirms it. 2 pink lines, positive. She takes 3 more tests, all positive. She sits on the cracked tile floor and does different math now. The baby is from her ex-boyfriend Marco. He left for Singapore 2 months ago. New job. Didn't discuss it with her. Just announced he was leaving in 2 weeks. They'd fought. Bitter, cruel words about wasted time and broken promises. But before he left, there'd been one final night together. Desperate and sad and ending something that had already ended. Marco blocked her on everything after he left. Cut her out completely. She hasn't heard from him since. Now she's carrying his baby while holding a contract that requires certified virginity for $4 million. The choice forms in her mind with desperate clarity. Tell the truth, lose the contract, watch her family die. Or lie, hide the pregnancy, get the money, save everyone. She calculates quickly. She's approximately 6 weeks pregnant right now. The marriage contract includes a 3-month courtship period. By the wedding, she'll be 18 weeks along, 4.5 months. But if she wears the right clothes, uses shapewear, stays careful, nobody will notice. And after the wedding, before the marriage is consummated, she'll find a clinic in Dubai, private facility. Wealthy women get abortions there quietly. She'll have $2 million by then. Enough to pay for any procedure, any discretion. Sheikh Jalil will never know. The problem will be eliminated before he ever discovers it. September 21st, 2023. 9 a.m. Celestine sits in Dr. Valdez's examination room. The doctor is a small man in his early 60s with tired eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He reviews her file. Virginity certification for Premium Brides International. Sheikh Jalil Al-Qasimi. Very traditional client. Very particular about documentation. He stands, gesturing to the examination table. I'll need to perform a physical examination to confirm hymen integrity, then issue the certificate if everything is as represented. Dr. Valdez, Celestine interrupts. I need you to write that certificate regardless of what you find. She opens her purse, pulls out an envelope. I have $8,000. My entire savings. $5,000 is yours if you write the certificate. If you confirm virginity and don't mention anything else you might find. Dr. Valdez stares at the envelope. He has gambling debts. $50,000 owed to people who aren't patient about collection. His daughter needs braces. His wife doesn't know about the debts. $5,000 is 8 months of salary in Manila. It's significant. It's tempting. It's fraud. He opens the envelope, counts the bills. You're pregnant, he says. Not a question. Celestine nods. How far along? 6 weeks. Maybe 7. Dr. Valdez thinks. The virginity exam checks for intact hymen. It's possible to be pregnant and still have intact hymen depending on the nature of previous sexual activity. Some women have flexible hymens that don't tear easily. He could write that her hymen appears intact upon visual examination, the standard test. He wouldn't be lying about that specific finding. He wouldn't include pregnancy testing unless specifically requested. That's not part of standard virginity screening protocol. I could write that your hymen appears intact, he says slowly. That's the standard test. I wouldn't be lying about that finding. But if your future husband discovers you're pregnant later, if he learns I issued this certification, the consequences will be severe for both of us. I'm getting an abortion after the wedding, Celestine says. Before the marriage is consummated. He'll never know. Dr. Valdez studies her face. Desperate young woman. Backed into a corner where deception seems like survival. He's seen it before. Manila is full of women making impossible choices between terrible options. Finally, he nods. Get on the table. I'll perform the examination. 20 minutes later, Celestine walks out of Marival's medical center with an official document. Medical certificate of virginity status. Patient name, Celestine Marie Reyes. Examination date, September 21st, 2023. Finding, hymen intact upon visual and physical examination. Conclusion, virgin status confirmed. Dr. Ernesto Valdez's signature is neat and official at the bottom, beside the clinic's embossed seal. In her other hand, she holds something Dr. Valdez gave her privately, an ultrasound printout. 7 weeks, 2 days pregnant. Estimated due date, April 2024. But she'll never reach that date. She'll make sure of it. September 23, 2023. Celestine submits her medical certificate to Premium Brides International. Madame Soraya reviews it, nods approval, and initiates the contract process. Within 48 hours, Celestine receives notification. Sheikh Jalil Al-Qasimi has reviewed her file and approved her candidacy. The 3-month courtship period will begin October 1st. She needs to be in Dubai by September 30th. First-class Emirates flight. The Palace Tower Hotel, 42nd floor suite. All expenses paid. Contract advances include $10,000 immediately for travel preparation and family support. Celestine receives the wire transfer. She sends $8,000 to her mother immediately, enough to make the first payment to the loan sharks. By 2 more months of safety. Rosa cries when she sees the money. My daughter, my brave daughter, you're saving us. If only she knew the truth. September 30th, 2023. Celestine boards Emirates Flight 384 to Dubai International Airport. First class. The seat costs more than her family's apartment is worth. She's 7 weeks pregnant now. The morning sickness has started. She keeps crackers in her purse, excuses herself to the bathroom twice during the flight to vomit quietly. The flight attendants assume it's nervousness about traveling. They're kind, attentive, unaware that the young woman in seat 2A is carrying secrets that will end in blood on a bedroom floor 6 months from now. Dubai rises from the desert like something from science fiction. Glass towers scraping the sky. The Burj Khalifa dominating the horizon. Wealth concentrated and displayed with no apology. Madame Soraya meets Celestine at the airport, shepherds her through customs and immigration with practiced efficiency. The Palace Tower is ready for you. Rest today. Tomorrow evening, first meeting with Sheikh Jalil. Chaperoned, of course. All meetings during courtship are supervised. No physical contact before marriage. Very traditional approach. The hotel suite is obscene in its luxury. Larger than Celestine's entire family apartment in Manila. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Burj Khalifa. Furniture that costs more than her father earned in his lifetime. Fresh orchids on every surface. A bathroom with a soaking tub that could fit 4 people. This is what $4 million looks like. This is the life she's buying with lies that stack higher every day. October 1st, 2023, 7 p.m. First meeting with Sheikh Jalil Al-Qasimi. Location, Al Nafura restaurant in the Palace Tower. Madame Soraya accompanies Celestine. Sheikh Jalil's lawyer, Rashid Al-Mahmoud, is also present. Sheikh Jalil arrives exactly on time. He's taller than his photographs suggested, imposing in traditional white kandura and black bisht. His beard is neatly trimmed, touched with gray. When he looks at Celestine, his gaze is intense, assessing. The look of a man examining a purchase he's made but hasn't yet received. The dinner is formal, controlled. Sheikh Jalil asks questions about her education, her family, her faith, her understanding of wifely duties. Celestine has prepared for this. Memorized the answers Madame Soraya coached her to give. She's Catholic but willing to learn about Islam. She values family above everything. She understands the importance of tradition and respect for her husband's authority. She wants children. She wants to be a good wife. Every answer is what he wants to hear. Every answer is calculated. Every answer is part of the fraud. I have been married twice before, Sheikh Jalil says, his hands folded on the table. My first wife died giving birth to our son. Complications during delivery. My second wife died in a car accident 7 years ago. She was returning from shopping when a truck driver fell asleep at the wheel. His expression doesn't change when he recounts these deaths. Just facts. Tragedies that happened to him, not caused by him. Death is God's will. But I learned something from both losses. Trust is sacred. When you build a family, you build it on foundations that cannot be questioned. He leans forward slightly. That is why honesty matters so much to me, Miss Reyes. I require absolute honesty from the woman I marry. Any deception, any lie, no matter how small, it destroys the foundation of everything. Virginity is not just about purity of body. It's about purity of truth. When a woman comes to marriage untouched, she brings with her no secrets, no hidden past, no deceptions. That transparency is sacred to me. Do you understand? Celestine's throat is dry. She nods. Yes. Sheikh Jalil smiles, but it doesn't warm his face. Good. Because I would hate to discover I had been lied to. The consequences of such a betrayal would be severe. He doesn't elaborate, doesn't need to. The word severe hangs in the air like a threat and a promise. Then the conversation moves on to lighter topics. His business, his children, his expectations for the courtship period. But Celestine can't stop hearing that word. Severe. She touches her abdomen beneath the table. 8 weeks pregnant now. The baby, no, the fetus, she corrects herself, just cells, nothing real yet, is growing while she sits across from the man she's deceiving. The 3-month courtship follows a rigid pattern. Every week, Celestine meets with Sheikh Jalil. Always chaperoned. Always formal. They dine at expensive restaurants where single meals cost more than her mother earns in a month. They visit the Grand Mosque in Abu Dhabi, the Dubai Museum, the Gold Souk, where merchants sell bracelets worth 6 figures. Sheikh Jalil is courteous, traditional, utterly controlling. He decides what they do, where they go, what topics they discuss. Between meetings, Celestine undergoes her transformation. Islamic scholar visits 3 times weekly, teaching her prayers, Quran verses, expectations of a Muslim wife. Arabic tutor drills her in conversational language. Cultural consultant teaches her Emirati etiquette, how to dress modestly, behave around male relatives, show respect without speaking. And through it all, the pregnancy progresses. Morning sickness hits her in waves. She learns to keep crackers by her bed, excuse herself to bathrooms frequently, blame the nausea on nervousness about the upcoming wedding. The hotel staff are discreet. If they notice her occasional vomiting, they say nothing. At 12 weeks, she researches abortion clinics in Dubai. Late at night, lights dimmed in her suite, scrolling through websites on her phone. There are options. Private clinics catering to wealthy women who need discretion. Procedures cost $3,000 to $8,000. She'll have access to that kind of money once the first Mar installment transfer. She bookmarks 3 clinics, memorizes their locations, plans her approach. 3 days after the wedding, she'll tell Sheikh Jalil she needs a routine gynecological examination. Common enough. Then she'll go to the clinic instead, end the pregnancy, return that evening with the problem eliminated. He'll never know. Nobody will ever know. December 20th, 2023. Pre-wedding medical examination. Required by Sheikh Jalil. Dr. Hamza al-Rashidi, his personal physician, works at Emirates Medical Center. Celestine is 17 weeks pregnant now. Her abdomen has started swelling. Not dramatically, but noticeably if you know what to look for. She wears shapewear beneath her loose abaya, compression garments that flatten her stomach. When she looks in mirrors, she convinces herself it just looks like weight gain, stress eating, wedding nerves, nothing suspicious. Dr. al-Rashidi is professional, efficient. Sheikh Jalil has requested thorough pre-wedding medical screening. Standard procedure. I'll verify your virginity status and ensure you're in good general health for marriage. The screening involves physical examination including pelvic exam to confirm hymen integrity, blood work for STDs and general health markers, standard vitals. He reviews her file. Sheikh Jalil has specifically requested confirmation of virgin status. He's very traditional about these matters. I have a certificate from my doctor in Manila, Celestine says, producing Dr. Valdez's document. Dr. al-Rashidi glances at it, sets it aside. Yes, I have a copy in your file. But Sheikh Jalil wants verification by his own physician. Please change into the gown and we'll proceed. The examination lasts 20 minutes. Dr. al-Rashidi is thorough, clinical, detached. He examines her externally, notes in his records that her hymen appears intact. He doesn't perform internal exam, not standard for virginity verification. And crucially, he doesn't order pregnancy test. Why would he? He's checking for virginity, not pregnancy. The two things aren't connected in his protocol. When Celestine mentions feeling bloated, he attributes it to pre-wedding stress. When he notes her slightly distended abdomen during external examination, he comments that many brides gain weight from nervous eating before weddings. She should perhaps watch her diet. Everything appears normal, he says finally. Virgin status confirmed. You're in good health, Miss Reyes. I'll provide Sheikh Jalil with my report. Celestine dresses with shaking hands. Another checkpoint passed. Another lie successful. Just one more week until the wedding. Then 3 days after that, she'll end the pregnancy and this nightmare will be over. December 27th, 2023. The wedding celebration begins. 4 days of lavish ceremonies that make Celestine dizzy. The henna night where Sheikh Jalil's female relatives decorate her hands and feet while eyeing her with suspicion. His daughters, 3 from first marriage, 2 from second, are cold, distant. The oldest, Layla, pulls Celestine aside. My father is not an easy man. He demands perfection, loyalty, absolute honesty. If you disappoint him, if you lie to him, the consequences will be severe. That word again, severe. Everyone uses it. Nobody explains it. Celestine doesn't ask. December 28th. The official Nika ceremony. Grand Horizon Hotel Ballroom. 300 guests. Government officials, oil executives, religious leaders, extended family. Celestine wears a dress that costs more than her family's apartment. Cream silk embroidered with gold thread. Conservative and traditional. The imam conducts the ceremony in Arabic, his voice solemn. Do you come to this marriage with purity and honesty? He asks Sheikh Jalil. I do, Sheikh Jalil replies. The imam turns to Celestine. And you? She thinks of her mother in Manila, safe now because of money Celestine sent. She thinks of Maricel back in university. Luis's arm healing properly. She thinks of the life growing inside her, the secret that could destroy everything. I do. Celestine lies before God and 300 witnesses. The contract is signed. $2 million transfers to an account in her name. She immediately sends $200,000 to her mother. Enough to pay off the loan sharks completely with extra for living expenses. Rose's message arrives during the reception. We're free. You saved us. I love you so much. March 27th, 2024. Grand reception. 3rd day of wedding celebrations. Celestine is 18 weeks pregnant now. The baby moves inside her for the first time during the speeches. A flutter so faint she almost misses it. She's standing next to Sheikh Jalil, smiling for photographers, when she feels it. The reality of what she's carrying, what she plans to destroy, hits her. She excuses herself to the bathroom and vomits, returns with forced smile. That night, she prepares for the wedding night in the bridal suite of Villa Zara. The master bedroom has been prepared with fresh white sheets. Traditional requirement. The sheets will prove her virginity tomorrow morning. But there will be no blood, because Celestine Reyes is not a virgin. And the life growing inside her will betray that truth in ways she can't control. She stands in the bathroom, looking at herself in the mirror. For months ago, she boarded a plane believing she could manage this deception. Now, wearing a silk nightgown that can't quite hide her swelling abdomen, she realizes how impossible that belief was. Tomorrow she'll go to the clinic. Tomorrow this will be over. She just has to get through tonight. March 28th, 2024. 11:47 p.m. Sheikh Jalil enters the bedroom. Celestine's last chance to confess vanishes with his first words. Tonight I finally claim what is mine. My pure, untouched wife. And Celestine knows, with sudden terrible certainty, that her deception is about to be discovered in the worst possible way. The clock reads 11:47 p.m. In 16 minutes, she'll be dead. Sheikh Jalil closes the bedroom door. The soft click sounds final. He's changed from his formal wedding attire into a simple white thobe, his feet bare on the plush carpet. The room smells of rose water and incense, scents meant to evoke romance, but that now seems suffocating to Celestine. She stands by the bed, hands clasped in front of her to stop them from shaking. The white silk nightgown Sheikh Jalil gave her hangs loose on her. Frame but not loose enough. In this lighting, with him this close, will he notice? Will he see the swell of her abdomen that no amount of shapewear can completely hide anymore? 11:48 p.m. You look nervous, Sheikh Jalil says, walking toward her slowly. That's natural. Expected. A virgin bride on her wedding night should be nervous. Celestine tries to smile, fails. Her throat is too tight. Sheikh Jalil gestures to the prayer rug beside the bed. Come, we begin with prayer. They kneel together. Sheikh Jalil recites verses from the Quran in Arabic, his voice deep and reverent. Celestine tries to focus on the words, tries to calm her racing heart, but all she can think is, this is it. This is where everything falls apart. In minutes, maybe less, he'll touch her and he'll know. Her body will betray her in ways she can't control. 11:51 p.m. The prayer ends. Sheikh Jalil stands, extends his hand to help her up. His palm is warm, his grip firm. He leads her to the bed, to those pristine white sheets that are supposed to be stained with proof of her virginity by morning. I have waited a long time for this, Sheikh Jalil says softly. 3 months of courtship, 12 weeks of restraint. But it was important to do things properly, traditionally, to honor you and honor God. He reaches out, touches her face. His thumb traces her cheekbone. Tonight you become truly mine. Celestine closes her eyes. She thinks about pulling away, confessing everything, throwing herself on his mercy. But mercy seems unlikely from a man who spent months emphasizing that deception was unforgivable. And what would happen to her family if she confessed now? Would he demand his money back? Would her mother end up back in debt to loan sharks, this time with no way out? So she says nothing. She lets him kiss her, lets him guide her to the bed, lets him begin the intimacy she's been dreading for months. 11:53 p.m. Sheikh Jalil's hands move across her body. Within moments, his movements slow, then stop. He pulls back, staring at her in the dim light. You move like a woman who has done this before, he says quietly. I'm just trying to, Celestine starts. No. His voice is sharp. A virgin doesn't know how to respond this way. A virgin doesn't. He sits up fully, reaching for the lamp on the nightstand. The room floods with bright, unforgiving light. 11:54 p.m. Remove the nightgown. Sheikh Jalil commands. What? No, Celestine tries. Remove it. Now. His tone leaves no room for argument. With shaking hands, Celestine pulls the silk nightgown over her head. She stands before him in only her undergarments, exposed under the harsh light. And there, unmistakable now without the loose fabric to hide it, is the swell of her pregnant belly. 18 weeks, 4.5 months, visible, undeniable, damning. The silence that follows is absolute. Sheikh Jalil stares at her abdomen as though he can't process what he's seeing. His face goes through expressions, confusion, disbelief, dawning horror, and then something darker. Something that makes Celestine take an instinctive step backward. What is that? His voice is barely a whisper. I can explain, Celestine starts. What is that on your body? The sudden roar makes her flinch. I'm pregnant, she says. The words hang in the air like an obscenity. 11:55 p.m. Sheikh Jalil stands slowly, his full height suddenly threatening in the enclosed space. Pregnant, he repeats, testing the word. You're pregnant. Yes, but how far along? His voice is a whip crack. 18 weeks. She watches his mind work, calculating. 18 weeks, 4.5 months, which means she was pregnant when she signed the contract, when she took his money, when she underwent medical examinations, when she stood before the imam and swore to purity and honesty. You were pregnant, Sheikh Jalil says slowly, his voice dropping to something more dangerous than shouting. When you came to Dubai, when you took $4 million from me, when you signed a contract that specifically, explicitly required virginity. I was desperate. My family, you took my money while carrying another man's bastard child. The words explode from him. He grabs her shoulders, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. Whose child? Who did this to you? My ex-boyfriend. He's gone. He doesn't know. So you thought you'd pass it off as mine. Sheikh Jalil releases her with a shove that sends her stumbling backward. Were you planning to give birth to some other man's spawn in my house? Raise it as my son? Make me a fool in front of my family, my colleagues, everyone? No. I was going to get an abortion. I have an appointment scheduled for 3 days from now. That's why I agreed to wait before. 11:56 p.m. Murder. Sheikh Jalil's eyes are wild now, his face flushed dark with rage. You planned to murder a child to cover up your fraud? It's not your baby. I wouldn't have. Exactly. It's not mine. You brought another man's seed into my marriage bed. Into my house. He's pacing now, his hands clenched into fists. Do you understand what you've done? The contract you violated? The sacred vows you broke? My family was going to die, Celestine says, tears streaming down her face. The loan sharks were going to kill my mother, my sister, my brother. I was desperate. I didn't know what else to do. So you chose to destroy me instead? Sheikh Jalil turns on her, and the look in his eyes makes her blood run cold. You chose to humiliate me, to make me the fool who paid millions for damaged goods? You chose to violate every sacred principle I hold dear. I'm not goods, Celestine whispers. I'm a person. You're a liar. He moves to the bedside table, picks up his phone. I'm calling Dr. Al-Rashidi. I want this documented. I want proof of your deception. Please, I'll return the money. All of it. Every dollar. I'll leave tonight. You can divorce me. Tell everyone I deceived you. I'll take all the blame. Just let me go. 11:58 p.m. Let you go. Sheikh Jalil laughs, but there's no humor in it. So you can return to Manila with my money and tell everyone how you made a fool of the great Sheikh Jalil Al-Qasimi? So you can live your life while my name is destroyed. I'll sign anything. A non-disclosure agreement. Whatever you want. Please. What I want, Sheikh Jalil says, his voice dropping to something terrifyingly calm, is to erase my mistake. Dr. Al-Rashidi arrives at 12:34 a.m., summoned from his home in the middle of the night by a client too wealthy and important to refuse. He finds Celestine sitting on the edge of the bed, wrapped in a robe now, while Sheikh Jalil stands by the window, his back to them. The tension in the room is palpable, dangerous. I don't understand, Dr. Al-Rashidi says as he sets up his portable ultrasound machine. I examined her last week. Confirmed virginity. Check for pregnancy. Sheikh Jalil commands from his position by the window. Check for how far along she is. Check for everything you missed. The ultrasound gel is cold on Celestine's abdomen. Dr. Al-Rashidi moves the transducer across her skin. Within seconds, the image appears on the small screen. A baby. Unmistakably a baby now. 18 weeks, 2 days. Arms, legs, a head. A tiny heart beating visibly on the monitor at 155 beats per minute. 12:41 a.m. Female fetus. Dr. Al-Rashidi says quietly. Approximately 18 to 19 weeks gestation. Appears healthy and normally developed. Sheikh Jalil turns from the window to stare at the screen. He looks at the baby, another man's baby, growing inside the woman he just married. The woman he paid $4 million to possess. His face is unreadable now, controlled, but his hands are shaking. How did I miss this? Dr. Al-Rashidi asks, more to himself than anyone else. The virginity exam. She deceived you, Sheikh Jalil says flatly. She deceived everyone. The hymen can be intact even with previous sexual activity. And pregnancy tests aren't part of virginity screenings, are they? No, the doctor admits. They're not. I only test for what's requested. Get out, Sheikh Jalil says. Sheikh Jalil, perhaps we should discuss. Get out of my house. Now. 12:44 a.m. Dr. Al-Rashidi packs his equipment with shaking hands and flees. The door closes behind him. Celestine is alone again with her husband. Her furious, betrayed, dangerous husband. The silence stretches. Sheikh Jalil walks slowly to the display cabinet on the far wall. The one that holds gifts from dignitaries and business associates. Crystal sculptures, gold plaques, awards and commemorations. And there, in the center, a ceremonial dagger. Gold handle, curved 12-inch blade. A gift from the Bahraini royal family 3 years ago. His hand closes around it. The blade gleams in the lamplight. No, Celestine whispers. Please no, you can't. I can do whatever I want in my own house, Sheikh Jalil says, his voice eerily calm now. To my own wife, who violated the most sacred contract between man and woman. I'm sorry, Celestine screams. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I'm so sorry. Please, I'll do anything. Please don't hurt me. 12:47 a.m. So am I, Sheikh Jalil says. And then he moves. The first stab catches her in the abdomen, directly over where the baby grows. Celestine screams, a sound of pure animal terror that echoes off the bedroom walls. She tries to run to get to the door, but he's faster, stronger. The second stab hits her chest, near her heart. She falls, her hands coming up instinctively to protect herself. It doesn't matter. He stabs her again, and again, and again. 12:48 a.m. Third wound to her throat. Fourth to her face. Fifth defensive wound on her left hand where she tries to block the blade. Sixth to her chest. Seventh to her abdomen again. The medical examiner will later count 37 wounds total. 14 to the chest and abdomen, 8 to the throat and face, 15 defensive wounds on her hands and arms where she tried desperately to protect herself from the blade that kept coming, kept cutting, kept destroying. 12:51 a.m. Celestine is conscious for approximately 7 minutes, long enough to feel the life draining out of her, long enough to know she's dying, long enough to think of her mother waiting in Manila for news of the wedding night, long enough to understand that her desperate attempt to save her family has destroyed them instead. Her last coherent thought, as darkness closes in, "I'm sorry, Mama. I'm so sorry." 12:54 a.m. The baby dies approximately 8 minutes after the first wound. Blood loss becomes catastrophic. The placenta can no longer sustain life. An 18-week-old female fetus, perfectly healthy until the moment her mother's body became a crime scene. She dies in the womb, never having drawn a breath, killed by violence she could not comprehend or escape. 12:58 a.m. Sheikh Jalil finally stops. Physical exhaustion forces him to. He stands over Celestine's body, the dagger still clutched in his hand, breathing heavily. Blood covers him, his face, his hands, his clothes. The carpet is soaked. The walls are spattered with arterial spray. The white sheets on the bed are completely red, but not with the blood of virginity he expected. With the blood of murder. With the blood of rage that consumed rational thought and left only destruction. He stares at what he's done, at the woman who deceived him, now lying broken and destroyed on his bedroom floor. Her eyes are open, staring at nothing. Her hand rests on her abdomen in a final protective gesture that came too late. Blood pools around her body, spreading across the expensive carpet, soaking into the fabric, marking this space as a place where a life ended violently, and a secret died with screams that no one came to answer. 1:03 a.m. Sheikh Jalil walks to the bathroom. He washes the blood from his hands, watching it swirl down the drain in pink streams. He washes his face, his arms, changes into clean clothes. The motions are automatic, mechanical. He walks to his study, sits in the leather chair behind his desk, and with remarkable calm, picks up his phone. Speed dial 3. Rashid Al-Mahmoud, his lawyer, his fixer. The man who handles problems that wealthy people create. The phone rings twice. Sheikh Jalil. Rashid's voice is thick with sleep. It's 1 in the morning. What? Rashid, Sheikh Jalil says, his voice steady despite everything. I've killed her. The bride. She was pregnant with another man's child. She deceived me about everything. I need you to come to Villa Zara immediately. Don't call anyone else. Just come. There's a pause. Long enough that Sheikh Jalil wonders if the connection dropped. Then, don't speak to anyone else. Don't call the police. Don't touch anything else. I'm coming now. 20 minutes. The line goes dead. Sheikh Jalil sets the phone down carefully. He sits in his study, in the silence of his mansion, in the aftermath of what he's done, and waits for his lawyer to arrive and tell him how to make this problem disappear. In the bedroom, Celestine Reyes lies dead at 26 years old. Her dreams of saving her family ended in a pool of blood on a mansion floor in the UAE. Her baby died with her, never having had a name or a chance, and the white sheets that were supposed to prove her purity instead documented her murder. This is what happens when desperation meets deception, when poverty collides with wealth, when lies built over 4 months collapse in 16 minutes, when a man believes his honor is worth more than a woman's life. 1:17 a.m. Rashid Al-Mahmoud's Mercedes pulls through the gates of Villa Zara. He's been Sheikh Jalil's personal lawyer for 15 years, handled everything from business contracts to divorce proceedings to the occasional scandal that needed quiet management. But when his phone rang at 1 in the morning with those words, "I've killed her," he knew this was different. This was murder. This was a crisis that required every skill he possessed and then some. Sheikh Jalil meets him at the door, composed, clean clothes, hair damp from a shower. Only the slight tremor in his hands betrays distress. "Show me," Rashid says. "No pleasantries, no questions yet. Just show me what we're dealing with." They walk to the master bedroom together. Rashid has seen crime scenes before. Car accidents, industrial incidents, one memorable case involving a construction site collapse. But nothing prepared him for this. Blood everywhere. Walls, carpet, furniture. The white sheets completely red. And the body, Celestine Reyes, 26 years old, Filipino bride married for 13 hours, lying in a massive pool of her own blood. Rashid counts quickly. Dozens of stab wounds. This wasn't a single blow in anger. This was sustained, intentional violence. This was butchery. Tell me exactly what happened, Rashid says, pulling out his phone to photograph the scene. Every detail. Don't leave anything out. 1:23 a.m. Sheikh Jalil's account is clinical. Detached. The wedding night. The discovery of the pregnancy. The realization of the fraud. The rage that consumed him. The dagger. The killing. He doesn't cry. Doesn't show remorse. Just recounts it like a business transaction that went wrong. I lost control, Sheikh Jalil finishes. I didn't plan this, but when I saw that she deceived me so completely, that she'd taken my money and violated the most sacred contract we have, something broke inside me. Rashid is already formulating the defense. Provocation, he says, photographing the blood spatter patterns, the position of the body, the dagger lying nearby. Extreme provocation leading to temporary insanity. Under UAE Penal Code Article 334, provocation can be grounds for reduced sentencing, especially in matters of honor. The pregnancy proves she committed fraud. The marriage contract explicitly required virginity, and she violated that knowing full well what the terms were. Will I go to prison? Sheikh Jalil asks. It's the first time he's shown any concern about consequences for himself. Probably, Rashid says honestly. But I can argue for manslaughter instead of murder. Crime of passion due to extreme emotional distress. The pregnancy is our leverage. It establishes premeditated fraud on her part. She knew she was violating the contract from day one. He photographs the ultrasound machine Dr. Al-Rashidi left behind in his haste to flee. How pregnant was she? 18 weeks. 4.5 months. She was already pregnant when she signed our contract. Perfect. That establishes systematic fraud. She didn't just lie once. She maintained an elaborate deception for months. Bribed a doctor in Manila to falsify medical certificates. Wore shapewear to hide the pregnancy during examinations. Took $2 million knowing she was violating every term. Rashid examines the ceremonial dagger. Gold handle. Curved blade. Approximately 12 inches. This is the weapon? Yes. A gift from the Bahraini royal family. We'll establish that you grabbed the nearest object in your emotional distress. You weren't thinking rationally. The choice of weapon was random, not premeditated. Rashid walks the room, examining everything with professional detachment. Here's what we're going to argue. She committed the ultimate betrayal. Not just sexual infidelity, that would be bad enough, but financial fraud, religious deception, and an attempt to pass another man's child off as yours. Any reasonable person would experience severe emotional trauma upon such a discovery. 1:47 a.m. The number of wounds, Sheikh Jalil says quietly. 37. How do we explain that? Consistent with a psychotic break brought on by extreme shock, Rashid replies without hesitation. You weren't in your right mind. The number of wounds actually helps us. It shows you'd lost rational control, that this was a dissociative episode, not calculated murder. A man in control doesn't stab 37 times. A man who's experienced complete psychological breakdown does. Rashid moves through the room systematically. The white sheets meant to prove virginity, now evidence of violence. The ceremonial dagger, now a murder weapon. The woman's body, small and broken. Was she conscious when you stopped? He asks. No. She stopped making sounds after about 10 minutes. 10 minutes of sustained violence. That's harder to explain as temporary insanity, but not impossible. Rashid has won cases with worse facts. 2:03 a.m. Here's what we do, Rashid says, making decisions quickly. We call the police now, from your phone. We report this immediately. That works in our favor, shows you're not fleeing or hiding. I'll speak to them first, establish the narrative. You discovered your bride's deception during the wedding night. You confronted her. She admitted to being pregnant with another man's child, to planning an abortion to cover it up, to systematic fraud spanning months. You experienced a complete psychological break. Everything after that is a blur, dissociation, trauma response, temporary insanity. I remember most of it, Sheikh Jalil says. You don't anymore, Rashid replies firmly. That's the trauma talking. Your mind has blocked out the details as a protective mechanism. Do you understand? This is very important. You remember the discovery. You remember the rage. But the actual violence is fragmented, dreamlike, not fully conscious. That's our defense. Sheikh Jalil nods slowly, understanding. I need the marriage contract, Rashid continues, and the medical certificate she provided claiming virginity. Any documentation of the fraud she committed. We need to establish that you were the victim first, before you became the perpetrator. Where are these documents? In my desk. I'll get them. 2:11 a.m. Rashid reviews the documents while Sheikh Jalil retrieves them. Marriage contract. Crystal clear terms. Virgin bride required. Medical certificate mandatory. $4 million contingent on these requirements. Medical certificate from Dr. Ernesto Valdez in Manila. Virgin status confirmed. Dated September 21, 2023. 6 months ago. When Celestine was already pregnant. Bank transfers. $2 million paid upon marriage. Another $2 million promised upon delivery of male heir within 2 years. This is excellent documentation, Rashid says. Shows the explicit nature of the contract she violated. The systematic nature of her fraud. The magnitude of the financial deception. He photographs everything. One more thing. Do you have the ultrasound images from tonight? The ones Dr. Al-Rashidi took. He left his machine. The images are still on it. Good. We need those. They prove she was 18 weeks pregnant. They establish timeline of fraud. 2:34 a.m. Everything is documented, photographed, prepared. Rashid makes the call. Dubai Police Emergency Line. This is Attorney Rashid Al-Mahmoud calling on behalf of my client, Sheikh Jalil Al-Qasimi. My client wishes to report a death that occurred at his residence, Villa Zara in Desert Palm Estates. His new wife, married yesterday, deceived him about being a virgin. She was in fact pregnant with another man's child. Upon discovering this fraud during their wedding night, my client experienced a severe psychological break and killed her. He is currently at his estate. He is cooperating fully and wishes to turn himself in immediately. The dispatcher's shock is audible. An ambulance is being sent. No need for an ambulance, Rashid interrupts calmly. The woman has been deceased for approximately 2 hours. Police and forensic services are what's needed now. My client is not fleeing. He is waiting at the residence. We will cooperate fully with the investigation. 3:02 a.m. Captain Mansour Al-Zabi arrives with 4 officers and 2 forensic technicians. He's 43 years old, veteran of Dubai Police, seen his share of domestic violence cases. But this is different. The victim is foreign. The perpetrator is one of the wealthiest men in the UAE. The circumstances are unusual. The international implications are significant. He approaches carefully, professionally, aware that this case will define his career one way or another. Sheikh Jalil, Captain Al-Zabi says, one doesn't speak too harshly to men of this wealth and power, even murder suspects. I need you to tell me what happened here tonight. The statement takes 40 minutes. Sheikh Jalil recounts everything. The wedding, the anticipation, the discovery of Celestine's pregnancy, the rage that consumed him. He shows them the marriage contract with its explicit virginity clause. He shows them the bank transfer of $2 million. He shows them the falsified medical certificate from Dr. Valdez in Manila. She defrauded me, Sheikh Jalil says, his voice steady. She took millions of dollars for a guarantee she knew she couldn't fulfill. When I discovered the depth of her deception, that she was carrying another man's child, that she planned to pass it off as mine, I don't even remember picking up the dagger clearly. I remember blood. I remember silence when it ended. I remember thinking, what have I done? But the middle part, the actual killing, it's like watching someone else do it. Like a nightmare I can't quite remember. 3:47 a.m. Captain Al-Zabi listens, takes notes, maintains professional objectivity. But he's handled cases like this before. Not identical, the wealth and circumstances are unique, but the underlying dynamic is familiar. Men who kill women for perceived betrayals, for violations of cultural expectations about purity and obedience. The terminology varies: honor killing, crime of passion, provocation, defense. But the result is always the same. A woman dead. A man claiming justification. The forensic examination takes hours. 37 stab wounds documented and photographed. Each one measured, catalogued, analyzed. Blood spatter analysis confirms a rage-killing, high-velocity arterial spray, cast-off patterns from the raised dagger, saturation consistent with sustained attack over several minutes. The murder weapon is collected, bagged, tagged. Sheikh Jalil's fingerprints are all over it. No question who wielded it. The body is examined where it lies. Celestine Reyes, 26 years old, Filipino national, married 13 hours, dead approximately 4 hours. Cause of death, exsanguination from multiple stab wounds. Contributing factors, trauma to vital organs, severed arteries, catastrophic blood loss. Time of death estimated between 12:50 a.m. and 1 a.m. The fetus is documented separately. 18 weeks, 2 days gestation. Female, normally developed. Cause of death, maternal blood loss leading to placental failure. 5:23 a.m. This is clear homicide, Captain Alzabi says to Rashid quietly, away from Sheikh Jalil's hearing. 37 wounds is not momentary loss of control. That's sustained, intentional violence over several minutes. Sustained violence during a psychotic episode, Rashid counters immediately. Have you seen the evidence? She was 18 weeks pregnant. She lied on official documents, committed fraud, violated a sacred Islamic marriage contract. My client's reaction, while tragic and extreme, was provoked by the most profound betrayal imaginable. That doesn't justify murder. Under UAE law, it might mitigate the sentence significantly. Article 334 specifically addresses provocation in matters of honor. This wasn't random violence. This was a response to discovering that his brand new wife had perpetrated massive fraud and was carrying another man's child. You've handled honor-related cases before, Captain. You know the law recognizes provocation as a mitigating factor. Captain Alzabi knows it's true. UAE law, like many legal systems in the region, does account for provocation in matters of honor. Doesn't excuse murder entirely, but can reduce charges from first-degree murder to manslaughter. Can reduce sentences from death penalty or life imprisonment to 10 or 15 years, sometimes less with good behavior. The law recognizes that discovering your wife's infidelity or deception can provoke temporary insanity. Whether that's just or not is a different question, but it's the law. 6:47 a.m. Sheikh Jalil Al-Qasimi is formally arrested and charged with first-degree murder. He's handcuffed, read his rights in Arabic, escorted to a police vehicle. The sun is rising over Dubai now, the city waking up to another day. Nobody outside Villa Zara knows yet that a bride was murdered on her wedding night, that a $4 million marriage ended in blood and betrayal, that another woman is dead because she lied about virginity to a man who believed he owned her. Bail hearing is scheduled for noon. Rashid argues that Sheikh Jalil is not a flight risk. He's a prominent businessman with deep ties to the UAE. He's cooperated fully with the investigation. He's turned himself in voluntarily. He poses no danger to the community. This was a domestic matter, not random violence. Bail is set at $10 million, an amount clearly calculated to be within Sheikh Jalil's reach but still significant. He posts it immediately through his corporate accounts. By 2 p.m., he's released to house arrest pending trial. Electronic monitoring ankle bracelet. Confined to Villa Zara except for court appearances and meetings with legal counsel. 7:30 a.m. Manila time. Philippine Embassy in Dubai receives notification. Foreign national deceased. Filipino citizen Celestine Marie Reyes, age 26, killed by her husband hours after their wedding. The consular officer assigned to the case, Maria Santos, draws the terrible duty of notifying next of kin. She places the call to Manila. The phone rings 4 times. A woman answers. Mrs. Rosa Reyes? Yes, this is Rosa. Her voice is happy, bright. She's expecting good news about her daughter's wedding. This is Consul Maria Santos from the Philippine Embassy in the UAE. I'm calling about your daughter, Celestine. Pause. Rosa can hear something in the tone that makes her stomach drop. Is she okay? Did something happen? Mrs. Reyes, I'm very sorry to inform you that Celestine was killed last night by her husband. We're investigating the circumstances, but it appears to have occurred during their wedding night. I'm so deeply sorry for your loss. The phone clatters to the floor. Rosa collapses, her heart hammering, her vision going dark. Can't breathe, can't process. Her daughter, her brave daughter who went to Dubai to save them, dead, murdered, by the man they'd sent her to marry. Maricel finds her mother on the kitchen floor 40 seconds later. Unconscious. The phone beside her with a voice still speaking. Mrs. Reyes? Mrs. Reyes, are you there? Hello? Rosa is hospitalized for 2 days with stress-induced cardiac symptoms. When she's stable enough to understand what happened, they tell her everything. Celestine was murdered, stabbed repeatedly. The husband claims she'd defrauded him by being pregnant. The case is international news now. Filipino bride killed in Dubai, wedding night horror, headlines scream across Manila newspapers. Social media explodes. Hashtags trend. Hashtag justice for Celestine among Filipino communities and human rights advocates. Hashtag honor matters among more conservative voices in the Gulf region. The narrative splits predictably. One side sees Celestine as victim, desperate young woman driven to deception by crushing poverty, killed by wealthy man who believed he owned her. Other side sees Sheikh Jalil as victim, man betrayed by lying bride who stole millions through fraud and planned to pass another man's child off as his heir. The truth, as always, is more complicated than either narrative allows. But in the court of public opinion, nuance doesn't matter. You choose a side and defend it viciously. Manila police expand their investigation. Dr. Ernesto Valdez, whose falsified medical certificate enabled Celestine's deception. His office is raided, records seized, evidence of multiple fraudulent certificates issued over several years discovered. 47 virginity certifications for premium brides international clients. How many other women did he help deceive wealthy husbands? How many other lies did he enable for $5,000 each? Dr. Valdez is arrested, charged with medical fraud, conspiracy, contributing to a death through deceptive practices. She paid me, he tells investigators. I needed the money. Gambling debts. I thought it was harmless. A virginity certificate. Who does it really hurt? How could I know her husband would kill her? His medical license is permanently revoked. He faces 5 to 10 years in prison. Premium Brides International is raided next. Madam Soraya arrested on human trafficking charges. I made introductions, she insists. What women did to meet requirements, what doctors certified, that wasn't my responsibility. But prosecution argues differently. She knowingly facilitated fraudulent marriages, profited from women's desperation and men's desire for guaranteed virgins. The agency is shut down permanently. Madam Soraya faces up to 15 years. Back in Dubai, Captain Alzabi completes his investigation, files his report. The forensic evidence is overwhelming. Sheikh Jalil killed Celestine Reyes in sustained, brutal attack lasting approximately 12 minutes. 37 stab wounds. Overkill suggesting rage beyond reason. But evidence also shows clear fraud on Celestine's part. Falsified documents, hidden pregnancy, violation of explicit contract terms. $2 million obtained through systematic deception. The case goes to trial. The world watches, and everyone waits to see how UAE justice will handle a collision between traditional values, women's rights, and the privilege of extreme wealth. September 3, 2024. Dubai Justice Complex. The courtroom is packed beyond capacity. Every seat filled with journalists, activists, family members, observers who lined up hours before dawn to witness what has become the most controversial trial in recent UAE history. Outside, two opposing protest groups face each other across police barricades. Filipino workers holding signs reading "Justice for Celestine" and "Women's Lives Matter." Conservative Emiratis countering with "Honor is sacred" and "Fraud has consequences." The tension is palpable, volatile. One wrong move could trigger riot. Sheikh Jalil Al-Qasimi enters through a side door, escorted by private security and his legal team. He wears traditional formal attire, pristine white kandura and black bisht, projecting dignity and cultural authority. He's lost weight during the months since the killing. His face is more gaunt, but his bearing remains that of a man accustomed to power, accustomed to getting what he wants. On the opposite side of the courtroom, Rosa Reyes sits with her remaining children, Maricel and Luis. Rosa has aged a decade in 6 months. Her hair completely gray. Her hands shake constantly now. Permanent tremor, the doctors say, is trauma manifested physically. She's lost 30 pounds, can barely eat, can barely sleep, She clutches Maricel's hand as Sheikh Jalil takes his seat at the defense table. 9 a.m., all rise for Judge Abdullah Al-Maktoum. The bailiff's voice cuts through the murmuring crowd. Judge Al-Maktoum enters, 63 years old. Career jurist known for strict interpretation of Islamic law but also reputation for fairness. He's handled several high-profile cases involving foreigners. His appointment to this case was strategic, someone who can navigate cultural and international complexities while maintaining UAE legal traditions. He sits, the courtroom sits, the trial begins. Lead prosecutor Ahmed Al-Hozani stands, 38 years old, ambitious, known for aggressive courtroom style. He volunteered for this case, sees it as opportunity to make statement about women's rights in the UAE. His opening statement is passionate, direct. Your Honor, members of the court. This is a story about a man who believed he owned a woman's body. Sheikh Jalil Al-Qasimi paid $4 million for what he considered a product, a virgin bride, guaranteed by contract to be untouched, pure, perfect. When he discovered that this product was not as advertised, he destroyed it. Al-Hozani walks toward the three judges who will decide the verdict. UAE courts don't use juries in Western sense. Panel of judges makes the determination. 37 times. He didn't stop when Celestine Reyes screamed. He didn't stop when she begged for her life. He didn't stop when she died. He continued stabbing her corpse because his rage demanded it. Because in his mind, she had violated his honor, and honor demanded blood. The prosecutor's voice rises. The defense will tell you this was crime of passion, that Sheikh Jalil was provoked beyond endurance by Celestine's deception. They will show you the marriage contract she violated, the medical certificates she falsified, the pregnancy she hid. And yes, she did those things. Celestine Reyes was desperate, and desperation made her dishonest. Her family owed $200,000 to loan sharks who were threatening to kill them. She saw an opportunity, terrible, flawed, desperate opportunity, and she took it. Al-Hozani pauses, lets the silence build. But does dishonesty deserve death? Does fraud justify 37 stab wounds? Does a lie about virginity warrant execution without trial, without mercy, without even a moment's hesitation? He picks up an enlarged crime scene photograph, holds it up for the judges to see. Celestine's body, blood everywhere. This is not honor. This is murder. And we will prove that Sheikh Jalil Al-Qasimi is guilty of premeditated, first-degree murder. 9:23 a.m. Rashid Al-Mahmoud stands for the defense. 56 years old. Decades of experience defending UAE's wealthiest citizens. His approach is measured, calm, almost grandfatherly. Your Honor, this is indeed a story about deception. But the deceiver was not my client. The deceiver was Celestine Reyes, who perpetrated one of the most profound frauds imaginable. She didn't just lie about her virginity, though that alone would have been grounds for contract nullification. She was pregnant, 4.5 months pregnant with another man's child when she stood before an imam and swore to purity and honesty. Rashid walks slowly, hands clasped behind his back. My client is a traditional man, a devout Muslim who takes marriage seriously, who values honesty above all else. He spent 3 months in chaperoned courtship. He paid $2 million as mahr. He underwent every proper ritual and ceremony. He did everything correctly, honorably, by the book. And in return, he got a bride who'd been lying to him since the first moment they met. The defense lawyer's voice hardens. When Sheikh Jalil discovered, on his wedding night, during what should have been the most sacred moment of their marriage, that his bride was carrying another man's child, his mind broke. Completely. He experienced what psychiatrists call an acute dissociative episode. A psychotic break triggered by trauma so profound that rational thought became impossible. 9:41 a.m. Rashid produces documents. Marriage contract, medical certificates, bank transfers. Celestine Reyes didn't commit a small lie. She committed systematic, premeditated fraud that spanned months. She bribed a doctor in Manila to falsify medical certificates. She wore shapewear to hide her pregnancy during examinations. She took $2 million knowing she was violating every term of the agreement. She planned to have an abortion after the wedding, murder a child to cover her tracks, and pass herself off as the virgin bride Sheikh Jalil had paid for. He turns to face the judges directly. My client is not asking for acquittal. He knows he took a life, but context matters, intent matters. This was not cold-blooded murder. This was a man driven temporarily insane by the ultimate betrayal. Under UAE Penal Code Article 334, provocation that violates honor can be considered grounds for reduced culpability. We are asking the court to recognize this as manslaughter in the heat of passion, not premeditated murder. The trial proceeds over 6 weeks. Testimony that grips the nation and international observers. Dr. Hamza al-Rashidi takes the stand first. His testimony is clinical, devastating in its detail. I arrived at Villa Zara at approximately 1:47 in the morning. Sheikh Jalil had called me in extreme distress, saying his bride was pregnant and he needed confirmation. When I arrived, I found Mrs. Al-Qasimi sitting on the bed, crying. Sheikh Jalil was pacing, agitated. "What did Sheikh Jalil tell you?" Prosecutor Al-Hozani asks. "He said she was pregnant. He wanted me to confirm it immediately. I performed an ultrasound examination." Dr. Al-Rashidi's voice is steady but his discomfort visible. The fetus was clearly visible on the monitor. Approximately 18 weeks, 2 days gestation. Female. Healthy development. Normal heartbeat at 155 beats per minute. What was Sheikh Jalil's reaction? Initially shock. Then the shock transformed into rage unlike anything I've witnessed in 30 years of medicine. He screamed about betrayal, fraud, his honor being destroyed. His face was flushed dark red, veins visible in his neck and forehead, spittle flying when he shouted. He looked at Mrs. Al-Qasimi with, Dr. Al-Rashidi pauses, choosing words carefully, with pure hatred, absolute hatred. "Did you fear for her safety?" "Yes, absolutely. I suggested taking her to hospital, separating them until everyone could calm down and discuss things rationally. Sheikh Jalil refused, ordered me to leave. I should have." His voice breaks slightly. "I should have called the police immediately, should have insisted on taking her with me. That is a regret I will carry for the rest of my life." September 10th. Defense cross-examination is aggressive. "Dr. Al-Rashidi, you examined Celestine Reyes 1 week before the wedding, correct?" "Yes." "And you certified her as a virgin?" "Her hymen appeared intact upon external examination, yes. But you missed that she was 17 weeks pregnant at the time?" "I was not testing for pregnancy. I was conducting virginity examination as requested by the client. Because Sheikh Jalil trusted that his bride was honest, that she had disclosed all relevant information. You were verifying what she'd already claimed, virginity, not investigating whether she might be hiding a pregnancy, because who would commit such fraud?" "Objection," Al-Hozani calls. "Argumentative. Sustained." Judge Al-Maktoum rules. "Counselor, ask questions, don't make speeches." But the point lands. Celestine deceived everyone. Doctors, lawyers, religious officials, her husband. The deception was systematic, thorough, deliberate. September 15th. The forensic pathologist testifies. Dr. Fatima Al-Zarani. Her testimony is the most difficult. She describes in clinical detail the 37 wounds found on Celestine's body. 14 to chest and abdomen, 8 to throat and face. Quint's defensive wounds on hands and arms. The defensive wounds indicate she was conscious and attempting to protect herself during much of the attack. Dr. Al-Zarani testifies. Her voice is professional, but you can hear the strain. The pattern suggests she raised her arms to block the blade, sustained cuts to her hands and forearms, then tried to protect her abdomen, likely an instinctive maternal response to protect the fetus. Rosa Reyes sobs audibly in the gallery. Maricel holds her mother, both crying now. Luis sits rigid, his jaw clenched so tight the muscles stand out. His hands are fists. If he could reach Sheikh Jalil right now, everyone knows what would happen. "How long did she remain conscious?" Al-Hozani asks gently. "Based on blood loss patterns and wound progression, I estimate 7 to 8 minutes. She would have been in extreme pain, experiencing increasing weakness as her blood pressure dropped." "Was she aware she was dying?" "Objection," Rashid calls. "Speculation." I'll rephrase. In your medical opinion, would a person with these injuries understand they were experiencing life-threatening trauma? Yes, these are not wounds that leave any ambiguity about their severity. She knew. The testimony about the fetus is even harder. The baby died approximately 8 minutes after the first wound, when maternal blood loss became too severe to sustain placental function. A healthy, normally developing female fetus. Killed by violence against her mother. The baby had no chance, Dr. Alzarani says quietly. Once the attack began, the fetus's survival was impossible. She died in the womb, never having drawn a breath. September 22nd. Psychiatric testimony becomes the crux of the case. Defense calls Dr. Hassan Al-Kawari, renowned forensic psychiatrist who examined Sheikh Jalil extensively. In my professional opinion, Sheikh Jalil experienced an acute dissociative episode brought on by extreme psychological trauma. The discovery that his new bride was pregnant with another man's child, combined with realization that he'd been systematically deceived for months, triggered a complete break from reality. He dissociated from his actions, physically present but psychologically absent. How do you explain the 37 wounds? Rashid asks. In dissociative states, particularly those triggered by profound betrayal, subjects can engage in repetitive violent actions without conscious awareness of what they're doing. The brain essentially goes into autopilot, driven by rage and trauma rather than rational thought. The high number of wounds actually supports the diagnosis. It suggests perseveration, a sign of psychological dysfunction rather than calculated violence. But prosecution's psychiatric expert disagrees sharply. Dr. Layla Mansouri takes the stand September 24th. 37 wounds is not dissociation. It's sustained, intentional rage. True dissociative episodes involve confusion, disorientation, loss of time perception. Sheikh Jalil was oriented enough to call his lawyer 2 hours after the killing and provide coherent account of what happened. He was oriented enough to shower, change clothes, prepare a defense strategy. This wasn't psychosis. This was a man who felt entitled to punish a woman who defied him. Dr. Mansouri's assessment is damning. I reviewed Sheikh Jalil's psychological history, his previous marriages, his relationships with his children. A pattern emerges of extreme control, rigid expectations, inability to tolerate any challenge to his authority. His first wife died in childbirth. Her medical records suggest she was denied adequate prenatal care because Sheikh Jalil didn't believe in Western medicine. His second wife's car accident occurred while she was attempting to leave him after years of what her friends described as emotional abuse. The defense objects vigorously. Prejudicial. Hearsay. Judge Al-Maktoum sustains some objections but allows the general character assessment. The damage is done. Sheikh Jalil isn't just a man driven temporarily insane by betrayal. He's a man with pattern of controlling, abusing, and ultimately destroying women who don't meet his standards. October 1st. Sheikh Jalil takes the stand in his own defense. Risky move. But Rashid believes his client's composure and apparent remorse will help. Tell the court about that night, Rashid prompts. Sheikh Jalil's account is measured, practiced. He describes the anticipation of consummating his marriage, the discovery of Celestine's pregnancy, the shock and betrayal he felt. When I saw that she was pregnant, something inside me died. Not just my trust in her, but my sense of reality itself. Everything I'd believed about our courtship, our marriage, our future, it was all a lie. She'd been lying to my face for 3 months while carrying another man's child. His voice is steady, controlled. What do you remember about the violence? Very little. I remember picking up the dagger. I remember blood. I remember silence when it ended. But the middle, the actual killing, it's like watching someone else do it in a dream. I know it was me. I know my hands did it, but my mind wasn't present. The cross-examination is brutal. Al-Hozani attacks every claim. You remember picking up the dagger? Yes. So you were conscious when you chose a weapon? I suppose. And you remember blood? Yes. So you were aware of the results of your actions? I saw blood, yes. You saw blood from stabbing your wife? Yes. The first stab wound. Were you in a dissociative state then? I don't know. Everything is confused. What about the second wound? The third? The 10th? The 20th? Al-Hozani's voice is relentless. At what point did you lose awareness? After stabbing her once? 5 times? 20 times? When exactly did this convenient dissociation occur? I don't remember clearly. Convenient memory loss. You remember enough to explain your actions as justified but not enough to be held fully accountable for butchering a pregnant woman. Objection. Rashid is on his feet. Badgering the witness. Sustained. Prosecutor. Moderate your tone. October 8th. Closing arguments take entire day. Al-Hozani's is passionate. emphasizing the brutality of the crime. The need to send message that women's lives matter. That fraud doesn't justify murder. That even in traditional culture, there must be limits to violence. Celestine Reyes lied. She committed fraud. She violated a contract. But her punishment should have been divorce, lawsuit, deportation. Not 37 stab wounds. Not bleeding out over 12 minutes on a bedroom floor while begging for mercy that was never shown. Rashid's closing emphasizes the provocation, the systematic fraud, the psychological trauma of discovering such profound betrayal. While the violence was regrettable and extreme, it was the product of temporary insanity triggered by Celestine's actions. This was not a man who woke up planning to kill. This was a man pushed beyond breaking point by discovering that everything about his marriage was built on lies. October 12th. The judges deliberate for 4 days. The courtroom is silent when they return. Judge Al Maktoum reads the verdict. On the charge of first-degree premeditated murder, we find the defendant not guilty. The Filipino section erupts in anguish. Rosa collapses in her seat. Maricel and Luis hold their mother up. However, Judge Al Maktoum continues, his voice cutting through the chaos. On the charge of voluntary manslaughter with extreme provocation, we find the defendant guilty. The courtroom holds its breath. On the charge of causing death while in a temporary state of diminished capacity, we find the defendant guilty. Judge Al Maktoum looks directly at Sheikh Jalil. While this court recognizes the extreme provocation caused by Mrs. Al-Qasimi's deception, nothing justifies 37 stab wounds. The defendant will serve 10 years in Jebel Ali Correctional Facility, eligible for parole after 6 years with demonstrated good behavior and completion of mandatory psychological treatment. Additional penalties announced. $500,000 discretionary payment to victim's family. Though the judge notes this will likely never be collected given civil proceedings demanding return of the mahr. Sheikh Jalil shows no visible reaction. Rosa weeps silently, her heart breaking again as she realizes that 10 years, maybe only 6, is all her daughter's life was worth in the eyes of this court. Outside, protests intensify. The verdict satisfies no one. Too harsh for some, man defending honor sentenced to prison. Too lenient for others, brutal murder punished with what amounts to slap on the wrist. Sheikh Jalil is taken into custody immediately, beginning his sentence. And in Manila, Rosa Reyes faces the next devastating blow that will ultimately destroy what remains of her shattered family. October 14, 2024, same day as sentencing. Sheikh Jalil is processed into Jebel Ali Correctional Facility. But processed is perhaps too strong a word for what his incarceration actually looks like. Wealth buys privileges even in prison, especially in a facility that houses white-collar criminals and wealthy offenders who can afford premium accommodations. His cell is private, larger than many Manila apartments, 20 square meters, bed with real mattress, desk, chair, small refrigerator, television, internet access on approved devices, private bathroom with actual shower, not communal facilities. He receives books, newspapers, subscriptions to business journals. His family visits weekly in comfortable rooms with cushioned chairs and no glass barriers. His daughters bring home-cooked meals from his favorite restaurants. His lawyer visits twice weekly to discuss business matters and legal appeals. He continues managing his investments through his attorney and adult children. His stock portfolio, his real estate holdings, his position on the board of Zenith Petroleum Corporation maintained through proxy voting arrangements. By the end of his first year in prison, Sheikh Jalil's net worth has increased. Oil prices rose. His investments performed well. He's wealthier incarcerated than most people will ever be free. Prison psychologists evaluate him regularly as part of mandatory treatment. Their reports are consistent. Minimal empathy, narcissistic personality traits, rigid thinking about honor and shame. He shows no genuine remorse for Celestine's death, only regret for consequences to himself. She brought this on herself, he tells one psychologist in year 2. I reacted badly, yes, the violence was excessive. I acknowledge that, but she destroyed my honor through systematic fraud. What was I supposed to do? Smile and forgive? Accept that I'd been made a fool? Not murder her, the psychologist suggests quietly. Easy to say when your honor hasn't been destroyed. Meanwhile in Manila, Rosa Reyes receives notification that destroys what little remains of her will to live. November 3, 2024. Civil court ruling. The marriage contract between Sheikh Jalil Al-Qasimi and Celestine Reyes is declared void ab initio, invalid from the beginning, due to material misrepresentation. Celestine warranted virginity in writing and failed to disclose pregnancy. Under UAE contract law, such fundamental fraud renders the entire agreement null. The $2 million paid as mahr must be returned, plus interest at 6% annual rate from date of transfer, plus legal fees incurred by Sheikh Jalil in pursuing the civil action. Total amount owed, $2,047,312. Rosa sits in the cramped office of her court-appointed lawyer. Attorney Delgado, tired woman who took the case pro bono because someone had to. The judgment is translated into English. Rosa stares at the numbers. They blur through her tears. I don't have this money, Rosa whispers. I sent $200,000 to pay the loan sharks. The rest, Celestine had it in her account in Dubai. I can't access it. The embassy tried to help, but the account was frozen after the murder. How can I return money I don't have and can't access? Attorney Delgado shakes her head. They'll seize assets. Your house if you still own it. Any property, vehicles, savings accounts in your name or your children's names. We have nothing. My husband died in debt. We live in my sister's garage. Then they'll get a judgment they can't collect. But it will follow you. If you ever earn money, acquire property, receive inheritance, they can claim it. This debt will shadow your family forever. Rosa stares at the document. Her daughter died trying to save the family from debt. Now her death has created a debt they can never escape. The cycle is complete. Perfectly, cruelly complete. November 15th. The house Rosa's husband owned, small, crumbling structure in poor Manila neighborhood, is seized and sold at auction. It brings $42,000, a fraction of what's owed. The remainder of the judgment stands uncollectible. $2 million hanging over the Reyes family like a sword that can fall at any moment. But Sheikh Jalil's legal team isn't finished. They file additional lawsuit against Dr. Ernesto Valdez, the Manila physician who falsified the virginity certificate, demanding restitution of the $5,000 bribe that facilitated Celestine's fraud. Dr. Valdez is already serving 8 years in Manila Central Prison for medical fraud and conspiracy. He has no assets, his medical license revoked, his family abandoned him, his savings depleted by legal fees. The judgment against him is symbolic. Another piece of paper that means nothing practically but everything in moral weight. I see her face every night, Dr. Valdez tells prison psychiatrist during routine evaluation. Month 4 of his sentence. Celestine Reyes, 26 years old, desperate, backed into a corner. I helped kill her for $5,000. I didn't hold the knife, but I'm as guilty as the man who did. I enabled her deception. I gave her the certificate that let her go to Dubai. I sent her to her death for gambling money. January 19, 2025. Dr. Valdez attempts suicide. Hangs himself using bedsheets knotted together and tied to cell bars. Guards find him unconscious, purple-faced, not breathing. They cut him down. Perform CPR. He survives but with brain damage from oxygen deprivation. Slurred speech. Memory problems. Motor control issues. He tries again 3 months later. Overdoses on medication he stockpiled from prison infirmary. Stomach pumped. Survives again. He's placed on permanent suicide watch. Will serve his full sentence. Released in 8 years as a broken man with nothing and no one. Madam Soraya fares better. Her trial on human trafficking charges results in 7-year sentence. But she'd been cunning. Hid assets offshore. Cayman Islands accounts. Panamanian shell corporations. Swiss safety deposit boxes. Upon release she'll have money waiting. Blood money from dozens of marriages she brokered. From desperate women she matched with men who viewed them as property. Premium Brides International is officially defunct. But in the shadows of Manila, similar agencies continue operating. Different names, same model. Wealthy Middle Eastern men still want virgin brides. Poor Filipino women still need money desperately enough to lie about anything. The cycle continues. For the Reyes family, the year after verdict is complete disintegration. Rosa's health collapses entirely. The cardiac issues that hospitalized her when she first learned of Celestine's death become chronic. Congestive heart failure, arrhythmia. Doctors prescribe medications she can't afford. Beta blockers, ACE inhibitors, diuretics. The pills cost $300 monthly. She takes them sporadically, when she can afford them, which isn't often. Her sister, who'd been housing the family in her garage, begins to resent the burden. 3 extra people. Medical emergencies, debt collectors calling, police inquiries about frozen assets. It's too much. She doesn't say it directly, but the implications are clear. Find somewhere else to live, soon. Maricel works 3 jobs trying to keep the family afloat. Cleans offices at night, 5-hour shift starting at 10 p.m. minimum wage. Works retail during day. Another 8 hours, standing behind counter at SM department store selling cosmetics. Smiling at customers while her feet scream and her back aches. Does freelance data entry in whatever hours remain. Typing until her eyes burn and her fingers cramp. She earns perhaps $600 monthly, total, from 60 to 70 hours of work per week. Barely enough for food and Rose's medications. Nothing left for rent or rebuilding their lives. Luis drops out of university permanently. No choice, no money for tuition, no time for classes. He finds work in construction. Dangerous labor in Manila heat, carrying rebar, mixing concrete, climbing scaffolding that sways in the wind. $7 a day. His arm, broken by loan sharks 2 years ago, never healed properly. It aches constantly, especially in rain. Can't bear heavy weight anymore. But he works anyway because there's no choice. Rosa declines rapidly. The guilt consumes her, metastasizes into something that eats her from inside. I killed my daughter, she says repeatedly. Her mind circles the same track obsessively. I encouraged Celestine to take Sheikh Jalil's offer. I accepted the money she sent. I benefited from the fraud. I sent her to that man. I'm the one who should have died. Maricel and Luis try to help. Try to convince her that Sheikh Jalil is responsible, that the system that commodifies women is responsible, that poverty is responsible. But Rosa can't hear them. The guilt has consumed everything. March 28, 2025, 1-year anniversary of Celestine's death. The family attends memorial mass at their parish church. 300 people come. Friends, neighbors, co-workers who knew Celestine. Filipinos who followed the case and felt connected to her tragedy. Women who saw themselves in her desperation. Families who understood the impossible choices poverty forces. The priest speaks about forgiveness, about God's mercy, about finding peace in grief, about how Celestine is with God now, free from pain and suffering. Rosa sits through the service silent and hollow. Her face is a mask. She's lost 40 pounds since Celestine died. Her clothes hang loose. Her skin is gray. Her eyes are empty. When Mass ends, people offer condolences, squeeze her hand, promise prayers. She nods mechanically, says the right words. Thank you. God bless you. We appreciate your support. But nothing reaches her. The guilt is a wall between Rosa and the world. That evening, back at her sister's garage, Rosa hugs Maricel and Luis, holds them tight. I love you both, she says. Her voice is clear. Calm. The calmest she's sounded in months. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. I'm sorry I couldn't save Celestine. I'm sorry for everything I've failed to do as your mother. Mama, we love you too, Maricel says, not understanding that this is goodbye, not recognizing the finality in her mother's tone. Luis hugs her. We'll get through this, Mama. Together. We'll survive. But Rosa is done surviving. That night, after Maricel and Luis are asleep, Rosa takes an entire bottle of sleeping pills, 30 tablets, enough to stop her heart, enough to end the guilt that has become unbearable. She leaves a note on the kitchen table, written in shaking handwriting on the back of an envelope. I sent my daughter to her death for money. Cannot live with this. The guilt is eating me alive and I have nothing left. Maricel, Luis, forgive me for abandoning you, but I am too broken to continue. Tell Celestine I'm sorry. Tell her I love her. Tell her I'm coming to beg her forgiveness in whatever comes after this life. I love you both. Take care of each other. Your mother. Maricel finds Rosa's body at 6:30 a.m. She's cold, stiff, been dead for hours. The pill bottle is empty beside her. The note is on the table. Maricel screams, a sound of pure anguish that brings Luis running. They call emergency services, but everyone knows it's too late. Rosa Reyes, 55 years old, dies of intentional barbiturate overdose. The medical examiner rules it suicide. She's buried in the same cemetery as her husband. In a plot the church provides free because the family can't afford one. Now Maricel and Luis are orphans. Father dead from diabetes. Mother dead from guilt. Sister murdered in Dubai. They cling to each other because there's nothing else left. They are 24 and 21 years old, alone in a world that has taken everything from them except each other. Meanwhile in Dubai, Sheikh Jalil serves his sentence in comfort. Year 4 of incarceration. He spends his days reading, watching television, managing his investments, receiving visits from family who bring him news of the outside world. He learns that Rosa Reyes killed herself. His lawyer mentions it during a business meeting. The victim's mother committed suicide. Guilt over her daughter's death, apparently. Sheikh Jalil shows no reaction. That's unfortunate. That's all he says. Unfortunate. As though Rosa's death is a minor inconvenience. A footnote to his own tragedy. Year 6. Sheikh Jalil becomes eligible for parole. His lawyers file the petition immediately. Armed with character references from business associates and religious leaders, they emphasize his good behavior in prison, his completion of anger management programs, his continued success in business proving he'll remain productive member of society. The parole hearing is brief. The board notes his cooperation, his lack of disciplinary incidents, his participation in counseling. They also note the gravity of his crime and international attention the case received. But ultimately they grant parole. March 15, 2030. Sheikh Jalil Al-Qasimi is released after serving 6 years of his 10-year sentence. He returns to Villa Zara, the mansion where he killed his bride. The bedroom has been professionally cleaned, all traces of blood removed, carpet replaced, walls repainted, furniture changed. You'd never know a woman was butchered there. He resumes his position on the board of Zenith Petroleum Corporation. Some business associates distance themselves, uncomfortable with his notoriety, but others welcome him back. He did what any man would do, they say privately. She deceived him, violated his honor. He defended himself. Sheikh Jalil never remarries. Once was enough, he tells people who ask. I learned my lesson about trusting women. He lives quietly, avoids media, focuses on business and his grown children. His 5 children are divided. Some supportive, believing he was driven to violence by Celestine's fraud. Others disgusted, maintaining only minimal contact with a father they now see as murderer. He gives one interview, year 5 after release, to sympathetic journalist who covered the trial from conservative perspective. Do you regret what happened? The journalist asks. I regret the violence, Sheikh Jalil says carefully. Words chosen by lawyers. The extent of it was excessive. I acknowledge that, but do I regret defending my honor? No. She committed fraud. She violated a sacred contract. There had to be consequences. Her death. That was not my intent going into that room. I wanted answers. I wanted truth. The rage overtook me. It became something I couldn't control. Would you change anything if you could go back to that night? Sheikh Jalil is silent for a long moment. I would have hired better investigators, would have verified her background more thoroughly, would have demanded a pregnancy test as part of the pre-wedding medical screening. I would have protected myself from her deception more effectively. Not, I wouldn't have killed her. Not, I would have shown mercy. Not, I would have chosen divorce over violence. Just, I would have protected myself better. The interview generates renewed outrage. But by then, most people have moved on. There are new scandals, new tragedies, new hashtags trending. Celestine Reyes becomes a footnote. Her name invoked occasionally in debates about women's rights and cultural practices, but fading from active memory. Only Maricel keeps her sister's story alive. She founds Celestine's Voice Foundation, small nonprofit educating Filipino women about dangers of marriage broker agencies, operating on donations and Maricel's volunteer labor. The organization helps 47 women exit dangerous situations over 5 years, provides legal support, shelter referrals, Counseling. My sister died because desperation made her lie, and wealth made him feel entitled to kill. Maricel tells the women who come to her, if I can prevent even one woman from facing that choice, Celestine's death means something. Luis works construction in Qatar now, sending money back to Maricel every month. They video call weekly but haven't seen each other in person in 2 years. He carries guilt too. Survivor's guilt. The irrational feeling that he should have prevented everything. That if he'd earned more money, been stronger against loan sharks, convinced Celestine not to go to Dubai, she'd still be alive. You couldn't have stopped it, Maricel tells him during their calls. None of us could. The system that created this poverty, desperation, men who buy women, that's what killed her. But Luis can't quite believe it. Some nights he dreams of his sister, young and laughing before everything went wrong. Other nights he dreams of finding Sheikh Jalil and exacting the justice the courts didn't deliver. But those are just dreams. In reality, he's powerless. Just another Filipino worker sending money home, trying to survive. 10 years after Celestine's death, a documentary filmmaker makes a film about the case. Wedding Night Massacre, the Celestine Reyes story, premieres at international film festivals, wins awards, gets picked up by streaming platform, reaches millions of viewers worldwide. The documentary interviews Maricel, prosecutors, women's rights activists, journalists who covered the trial. Sheikh Jalil refuses to participate. The film is sympathetic to Celestine while acknowledging her deception. Examines the systems that led to tragedy, poverty in Philippines, commodification of women in marriage markets, persistence of virginity culture, legal frameworks that treat honor killings leniently. If one person watches this and recognizes they're in a dangerous situation, Maricel says in the film's final interview, tears streaming down her face, if one woman gets out before it's too late, then maybe, Celestine's death wasn't completely meaningless. But late at night, alone in her small apartment in Manila, Maricel looks at photos of her sister and wonders if anything has really changed. Marriage broker agencies still operate under different names. Wealthy men still demand virgin brides. Desperate women still lie. And sometimes, when those lies are discovered, blood still soaks into bedroom carpets in mansions far from home. March 28, 2034. 10 years exactly since Celestine's death. Maricel visits the memorial plaque at the church. She brings flowers, white roses, Celestine's favorite. She touches her sister's name engraved in bronze. She whispers the same words every year. I'm still fighting for you, 8. Still telling your story. So you didn't die for nothing. But some nights, in the deepest hours when grief can't be outrun, Maricel wonders if she's lying to herself. If Celestine died for nothing after all. If all the advocacy and documentaries and foundations in the world can ever balance the scales against one sister's blood spilled on white sheets that were supposed to prove purity but instead proved only that human life is shockingly, devastatingly cheap. Celestine Reyes, 26 years old, murdered on her wedding night for lying about virginity. She died with her baby. Her mother followed her into death 1 year later from grief. Her family was destroyed. Her killer served 6 years in comfortable imprisonment and returned to his wealthy life. And the world spun on, indifferent to individual tragedy, immune to lessons that should have been learned. Somewhere in Manila right now, another young woman is considering an offer from a marriage broker. Another family is drowning in debt. Another daughter is calculating whether deception is worth the risk if it means saving the people she loves. And somewhere in the UAE, another man is drawing up a marriage contract with a virginity clause, believing that money can buy guarantees, that women are products to be inspected and returned if defective, that honor justifies any violence. The cycle continues. Celestine's story is over. But somewhere, another story just like it is beginning.